Yesterday, on Monday, Diddy celebrated his 55th birthday, but this year was a lot different. It was no Diddy parties. It was none of that. None.
On Monday, the world watched as Sean Diddy Combs celebrated his 55th birthday, but this year was anything but ordinary. The extravagant parties and celebrity-filled events that usually accompany his milestone birthdays were nowhere to be seen. Instead, this year marked a significant shift as Diddy's first birthday behind bars took center stage. It was a day filled with somber reflection, no lavish celebrations, just the heavy weight of a man who had once ruled the entertainment industry, now caught in a storm of legal battles. Diddy, once the king of hip-hop and a symbol of opulence, found himself in a federal courtroom in Manhattan. His arrival was unlike any other. The man who had built an empire from nothing, whose name was synonymous with power and influence, now walked in the prison-issued beige jumpsuit. His graying hair and tired eyes were a stark contrast to the vibrant, untouchable persona he had cultivated for decades. Yet, despite his diminished appearance, his presence in the courtroom remained commanding. The atmosphere inside was electric, charged with an intensity that could only be generated by the magnitude of the case at hand. The trial was a spectacle, and the attention it commanded was palpable. People from all corners of the media and legal worlds filled the courtroom, each one eager to witness the unfolding drama. The weight of the charges against Diddy was undeniable, and the allegations were nothing short of shocking. Misconduct, manipulation, and coercion were at the heart of the accusations, transforming Diddy from a revered mogul into the center of one of the most explosive scandals in entertainment history. Federal charges against him read like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, but the reality was far darker. The term freak-off had entered the lexicon surrounding the case, evoking images of meticulously planned events designed to fulfill Diddy's alleged desires. The prosecution argued that these events were orchestrated to trap individuals in a web of fear and control. It was a narrative that was hard to ignore, and as the courtroom filled with reporters and onlookers, the question on everyone's mind was, how did it come to this? How could a man who had built an empire of luxury and influence fall so far? One of the most shocking revelations came when it was disclosed that Diddy had rejected a plea deal offered by the prosecution. The plea, while offering a lesser sentence, would have required him to admit guilt. But Diddy, confident or perhaps defiant, stood his ground. When the judge asked him if he understood the consequences of rejecting the plea deal, Diddy's response was unwavering, "Yes, I did." It was a moment that underscored the high stakes of the trial, a reminder that this was not just a fight for freedom, but a fight for his legacy. As the trial began to unfold, the defense team was revealed. Diddy's legal team, led by the formidable Mark Agnello, had already made headlines for its bold approach. Agnello, known for defending high-profile clients such as Martin Shkreli and Keith Rary, had earned a reputation for turning seemingly impossible cases into courtroom victories. But even with Agnello's expertise, the odds seemed overwhelming. The government's case was meticulously crafted, with years of investigations, witness testimonies, and what prosecutors claimed was irrefutable evidence. Among the prosecution's star witnesses were individuals who had been at the center of Diddy's alleged operations. They were prepared to testify under their real names, sending a clear message that the government was not backing down. Their testimony was expected to be devastating, and it left even seasoned legal analysts reeling. But the defense appeared unfazed. Agnello's strategy was beginning to take shape, and it was clear that he intended to frame Diddy not as a predator, but as a misunderstood man caught up in a whirlwind of consensual relationships. The defense introduced a controversial angle, the idea that Diddy was part of the swinger lifestyle, a narrative that sought to normalize the behavior that the prosecution was labeling as criminal. It was a risky move, but one that could potentially resonate with jurors who might view the situation differently. It was a gamble, one that could either win the case or lead to a devastating loss. As the trial continued, Diddy's defense team appeared confident, almost as if they were playing a game of high-stakes poker with his future on the line. They were willing to take risks, to challenge the validity of the prosecution's evidence, and to spin a narrative that could shift public opinion. The courtroom drama became increasingly complex, with each side making strategic moves and counter-moves. Every decision, every ruling, seemed to bring them closer to the final outcome. And as the judge presided over the proceedings, it was clear that this was no ordinary trial. This was a battle for Diddy's freedom, his reputation, and his future. Behind the scenes, there were whispers of internal tensions within Diddy's defense team. Sources close to the case claimed that not all members of the legal team were aligned on how to approach the case. Some wanted to pursue an aggressive strategy, discrediting the witnesses and challenging the evidence at every turn. Others urged caution, fearing that such tactics could backfire and alienate the jury. The addition of new lawyers to the team only added to the speculation, with some wondering if the reinforcements were a sign of strength or desperation. Meanwhile, the prosecution was not sitting idly by. They were preparing to unleash a wealth of evidence, including hours of video footage, phone transcripts, and financial records. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was said to be communications between Diddy's inner circle, where staff members allegedly discussed the logistics of certain events. These messages, which were reportedly casual but chilling in their implications, could serve as the linchpin in the prosecution's case. In addition to the documents and videos, the prosecution was also preparing to present witness testimony from former employees and insiders. These witnesses were said to have first-hand knowledge of the operations that Diddy allegedly ran. They were expected to shed light on the financial mechanisms that kept the alleged activities running smoothly, revealing payments, perks, and incentives designed to ensure silence and loyalty. If these witnesses delivered as promised, the government would have a powerful case, one that could not easily be dismantled. As the trial wore on, the defense continued to maintain that Diddy was innocent, that he had done nothing wrong. They argued that the accusations were coming from bitter ex-girlfriends and disgruntled associates, and that the whole case was a product of vindictive individuals. It was a narrative that they hoped would resonate with the jury, but whether it would be enough to sway the court remained to be seen. And then there was the issue of the jury. Finding an impartial panel for such a high-profile case was always going to be a challenge. Diddy's name was known around the world, and the case had been plastered across every major news outlet. The defense's team worked tirelessly to vet potential jurors, searching for any hint of bias or preconceived notions. But in a case as public as this, how could anyone truly be impartial? Adding to the drama was the revelation that tapes, possibly crucial evidence, had been leaked and were being shopped around Hollywood. The existence of these tapes could further damage Diddy's defense, raising questions about what they might reveal. It was another twist in a case that seemed to have no end to its shocking revelations. Outside the courtroom, Diddy's legal team was fighting a media battle as well. Carefully crafted statements were released, emphasizing his philanthropic efforts and his role as a family man. But these attempts to humanize him were overshadowed by the increasingly lurid details emerging from the trial. The public's perception of Diddy was shifting, and his legal team worked tirelessly to try to control the narrative. The judge overseeing the trial had shown little patience for theatrics or delays. Every ruling was swift and decisive, leaving little room for maneuvering. He had already shut down attempts to delay the trial and had firmly denied requests to exclude key evidence. As jury selection continued, it was clear that the trial would proceed on schedule. The defense knew that time was running out, and every moment brought them closer to the final verdict. As the trial drew closer to its conclusion, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The stakes were higher than ever, and the outcome would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Diddy, but for the entertainment industry as a whole. The trial was more than just a legal battle. It was a battle for the legacy of one of the most influential figures in modern pop culture. In the end, the question remained, how much of the truth were we really prepared to face? The courtroom drama surrounding Diddy was far from over, and the revelations that had already come to light were only the beginning.